All right, welcome to another episode of Inside Hollywood with Vinny. And this evening we are joined by a dear friend, but an amazing actor at the same time. He's a local legend here in South Philly. He's been in a number of films. He was the man who's been mentored by people of the likes of Chazz Palminteri, Bruce and Bruno Kirby, Bobby Moresco, and a number of other great influences in his life. He is my dear friend and amazing SAG actor, Freddie Ganno. Freddie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Vin. Thank you for having me. Glad to be here. Very excited to be joining you here.
It's a pleasure, Fred. We tried the first time we tried to record this, and the devil tried to defeat us. It ain't going to happen. We're going to make this thing happen right here, right now. I got a great poster right behind me, right here, of the in crowd. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about Chazz, talk about everything.
Right.
Most of all, we're going to talk about you.
We want to make sure the devil can't bother us because the Bible is here to make sure he stays away.
That's it.
Anyway.
So, Fred, let's get started. Let's talk about me. And your first real hit here was a movie that was done with obviously yourself and Joe Pantoliano. It was an amazing film. You tell us a little bit about it, The In Crowd.
Well, The In Crowd was my first really breakout role, a nice supporting role. It was we made it in 1987. It came out in 1988. A friend of mine kept bothering me to go to Temple University for the auditions. I said, Carol, leave me alone. No. She said, go, because there's a cattle call. There were about 1,000 people then. I said, she wouldn't stop bothering me. I said, you know what? I'm going. I went. I had an audition with Mark Rosenthal. I get a call back, and he interviews me again. And he does a little improv with me, and I had a tissue. I was wiping my face, my forehead. I was sweaty a little bit, and he said, do a little improv with me. I did it. I threw the tissue at him. I said, man, maybe that was a little too far. I got booked. I got hired as Orson, who was, if you saw the movie, and it's on YouTube, with Joey Pantoliano. I was his bodyguard. From then on, I forged relationships with Joey and Bruce Kirby, who was my mentor. I called him my father in L.A., my dad in L.A., because every time he was in L.A. or I was in New York or Philly, we talk almost at least 3 times a week. And, we talk about everything from auditions to food. Bruce Kirby started a friendship there in the in crowd, also with Mark Rosenthal. Now, don't forget, Vin, this is from 1987. It's now almost 40 years. I'm still friends with Mark Rosenthal, who wrote the movie. Well, Bruce and Bruno are gone now, but, we were friends until the end. We go out to L.A., they'd come out here, they came to my, my wedding party. And, it was great. So Bruce was one of my mentors, so also Bruno. And, hey, to get advice from those guys is incredible. And Mark Rosenthal, of course, who's a writer, which you are, a really terrific writer, and we'll talk about that. But also, we forged not only a friendship, but a great relationship for many years. And I keep going with those relationships, not only connecting, but, going to people's homes. For instance, another mentor of mine is Chazz Palminteri, a great friend he became from going to his classes in one-on-one studios in New York City. The second time that I was in his class, the second go around, he basically, I was vacuuming, I remember, at our home in New Jersey, and my wife picks up the phone and she says, babe, stop it. It's Chazz Palminteri. She got all nervous. Chazz Palminteri. So I got on the phone and he said, Fred, I'd like to, see if you'd like to do this role with me in a pilot I wrote called Unorganized Crime. So, from there we did it, and that's on Amazon Prime also. So I wanted to just make sure people know that you don't only sometimes work with people, you forge relationships that can last forever. So, that's how these things came about. And also, I met Bobby Moresco through Bruno and Bruce Kirby. So we'd go to lunch, Bruno and Bruce and myself. When I was in L.A., they'd come here to Philly or New York. I would go to Chazz's classes, Bobby Moresco's classes in L.A. And, from there, and we also, connected. And I got work from that, But the main thing was friendships, like you and I forged from Washington Avenue, and before that. But that's how things come about. And I think God puts you in touch with the right people and you stay connected, and it's a beautiful thing.
Really amazed by not just what a great actor you are, but also, what a big heart you have. You are very selfless. You're always trying to help everybody else around. You did that with our short film that, through the grace of God, won over 12 film festivals worldwide, Washington Avenue. I'm plugging
Amazing.
it more for you than for myself, but because you were the lead and you did an amazing job, the same with Butcher Mancini, and you coached your other co-stars, you helped me every step of the way. Couldn't have done it without you, really. And it says a lot about you. And it says a lot about your character and how much you care, not just about your fellow man, but also about the work that you do. Because you're a consummate actor. You've taught acting. You've had great mentors. So let's dial it back a little bit. Let's you're a young man. You're working with the in crowd. You're working around. Tell us about what happened after when that was done and you saw yourself on the big screen. How did you feel?
Well, after it was done, and we went to the premiere, we had the big premiere, and it's shown on I don't know how many theaters in Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, Los Angeles. Basically, I felt great. I felt like this is what I should be doing. I've always felt like this is what I should be doing, but that was my first big role. And from there, 27 other pictures, movie, films, and TV shows like Veep with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and James Franco in The Deuce. And also James Franco was a good friend of Bruce Kirby. So, there was another connection, and we talked about that because he said, I heard you were on The Deuce. Did you say hello to James Franco for me? Because they were all we intermingled in classes. Chazz Palminteri, for instance, after that, wrote The Bronx Tale at Theater East, where Bruce Kirby used to also study, and Bruno Kirby. And I also went to Theater East. So you see, the people from the East Coast will go to Theater East, and there's also a Theater West. So what happens is you start to, talk and connect where you're from. I'm from Philly, from New York, from New Jersey. It's a melting pot. So when I saw myself on the big screen there, I said, you know what? This was done in Philadelphia. And basically, it's people were flown in from LA. So one of the producers, Fred Barron, said to me, Freddie, we love what you did. Come out to LA. Why don't you, continue your career there? And I went to live there for a few months, and as always, a lot of people that you get homesick back and forth. But the relationship stayed, and we stayed in touch, all of us. Joey Pants, Bruno and Bruce Kirby, and I met Chazz Palminteri in New York City way after he did The Bronx Tale. I met him in 15, and we did Unorganized Crime in 2017. So you see how that happens. They see your work, you start to talk, and you forge relationships, and boom, before you know it, would you like to do this? Would you like to be in this film with me? Or, to go to this casting director. It's not that easy because, it took me many years to get there. However, when you get to the point where you're forging these relationships, and I always say relationships because people become like, I used to call Bruce Kirby my dad in LA. It just keeps going, and you just keep in touch with these people, the people that you want to stay in touch with. And, you fall in love with the business, but you fall in love with the people more than, that's what it is. And you as a writer, director, producer, and actor, what you did, you said, Fred, would you like to play Sammy in Washington Avenue? Boom. That was it. And from then on, I think, we became like brothers, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Fred. I appreciate it. Thanks for a compliment. Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing experience. And like I said, I don't consider myself an actor. I really love writing and, the production part of things. And I love to be a storyteller. I grew up watching a ton of movies. I was always infatuated. I was with comedies and with horror and all different genres. And you couldn't get me out of a video store back in the old days. But, looking at you and watching you in action, how you absorb and you really you dive all in with the character. But I learned something important from you too. You don't become the character, right? You just interpret him. So I'd like for you to touch on that for some of the people that are just maybe getting their feet wet in acting. What's some good tips for those young actors and actresses?
One main tip I say, one main thing I say is study, study. Go to acting classes. I was a theater actor before I became a film and TV actor. Do theater is your best learning steps. Go to a good school, wherever you are. You don't have to be in New York, Philadelphia, LA. Wherever you are, there are theater classes. Start in theater. That's how I did it. And that's how I say that's, when you work the boards, that's what they call the stage. When you work the boards, you start to really understand how to develop a character because you're working closely with people and it's a much slower process because you have many weeks to rehearse. So the first thing I say is go to classes, take theater classes, study with a voice coach. I'm also a singer, so I was taking voice lessons and theater lessons at the same time at the Wilma Theater on 20th Street and in Center City, and with John Palmer at the Sylvania House on Locust Street. And so study is my advice for people who are just getting into this business. Don't think you can just jump in and say, hey, I'm going to be an actor and I can act. Although you got some chops on yourself then, but with us doing things together. But what I say is study, get out there, promote yourself in the way that you should, to the point where, hey, after you take some classes, go to some casting directors and see, they have classes too. That's where you get work. So go to casting director classes. They have many of those. And also, after a while, you'll get an agent. But don't get an agent in the beginning. Just try to do some things yourself, do some theater work, and get theater work anywhere. But study is my first course of action. And after that, like I said, you cannot become a character. You always put yourself in the character's position, and you bring it out to the point where I write a biography down. Where did I come from? Where do I live? What's my religion? What's my field of study? Am I going to college? Am I in high school? Do I have children? Do I have a family? Do I not have family? Did my parents die in a car accident? Or have I lost them long ago? What happens is visceral. It's all from the stomach, okay? All in here, you feel it. So from what you want to portray as the character, what the breakdown of the character is, you bring it out in you. So, for instance, if in Washington Avenue, let's take Sammy the butcher, for instance. My father passed away, and I'm working for this butcher. Little did I know that as my father worked for this butcher, they were very close. I didn't know that until a certain point in the film. I'm trying to do something wrong, and I see my father's photo in the butcher's downstairs office, and I didn't know he loved my father that much. So I'm dichotomized between, do I hate this guy because he doesn't treat me right, or I think he's a grouch, or do I love this guy now because he loved my father and my father loved him? You see, so those deep. What I say is, look at do the Titanic step. You know what happened with the Titanic? There was an iceberg way under, so go way beneath the surface. You have to go beneath the surface. Okay, you and I can see each other face to face, but we don't know what's happening inside our bodies, inside our minds, how we're feeling, what's happening. So, and that's how you write from. But, that's how I tell a lot of people who I taught and who I mentored and who I went to school with. Study first, but, always look beneath the surface for your character.
Yeah, and I think we share the same. We draw from the same thing, which is from experience. As a writer,
From
as
real
an
life experience, exactly.
actor, life experience is the best mentor. Would you agree?
I definitely agree. And to tell you the truth, let me tell you another fast story. What really got me into acting, like you said, we used to watch movies and TV shows, couldn't get me out of the video store either. But when I was a young man, and I guess it was the early 80s, mid 80s, Robert Blake in Beretta, he inspired me, totally inspired me. So Robert Blake, from watching him as Beretta, I said, boom, from there I started to go to take classes. And from then on, I studied men like Anthony Hopkins, who's an incredible actor, Denzel Washington. When I watch a film or a TV show, I can't watch it only for entertainment. I study the actors. Study the actor. For instance, my wife brought up the film that Viola Davis won an Academy Award for with Denzel Washington, Fences. Off the top of my head, I forgot who wrote it, but it was a great play, but they did it, and Viola Davis and Denzel Washington. Just watch that show, Fences. It's an amazing movie, but those two characters and the way they meld together as husband and wife is incredible. So true life experience is most definitely where people draw from in any respect of a TV show, movie, or theater. Absolutely.
Excellent. And going back to Chazz, so tell us how that relationship started and then how it actually became a real friendship.
Okay, it started in one of his classes, like I said. A friend actually says, Chazz Palminteri is teaching it one-on-one in one-on-one studios in New York City. And they have these many little studios where, there you go, casting directors and instructors will teach you acting classes. But Chazz Palminteri was there, and they only wanted experienced actors for if you had experience for at least 2 years or more. So being in the business for over 30 years, I applied and I auditioned for you. Basically, in the first class, you're auditioning for them because there are people that will come in and you have to do a monologue. Don't forget, a monologue is just you right up there, like you're naked. It's just doing a monologue right to him. And there were people that were in there, and he said, no, I don't think you can do this class. He gave them their money back, and they went. So he only had about 20 people in the class, and we were all pretty much experienced. And from that, he saw my work. The next week, we would do scenes, and then the next week, we would do another scene, and that ran for 3 or 4 weeks. In the second part of that, that's when I got the call after I went into another class of his. He called me after the second class. He called me that night. From there, says, hey, that's great. Chazz Palminteri wants me in a show with him. It's a pilot. That's great. Of course, we did it in L.A., and from then, we started talking. And, after that, we forged a relationship there with a couple other guys, too. My friend Mike Massimino, Al Socelli, the New Yorkers and the Philadelphians. We got together. After that, I go to Chazz's class again. He calls me and a couple guys over. He says, I'm going to have you over for dinner at my house. We have this thing where I get this all men's barbecue together, and they invited us over. And to tell you the truth, talk about integrity. Bruce Kirby always said, always keep your integrity, Freddie. Don't sell yourself out, and don't sell out to anybody. Talk about integrity. So we go to Chazz Palminteri's home in New York City, right? And he has this all men's barbecue. I said, how long has this been going on for? He's been having it for 35 years. And I met men he's from the city, Belmont Avenue. Remember Dion and the Belmonts? Well, they were neighbors of his. They would practice right on the corner. He'll tell you right on Bronxdale also. I met about 10 or 12 people from his childhood. I said, how long you know Chazz? Since we were 6 years old. So talk about fame not getting to your head. This guy loves the regular, down-to-earth guy and friends of his from when they were 6 years old. So talk about integrity. Talk about, like we talked, right from the heart. And the man is a wonderful man, and I can call him anytime, text him anytime if I have something to ask him. And I love him. He's a God-fearing man, and he's a great guy.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of his also. And you flattered me when you told me that you called him to ask him about a scene that from Washington Avenue, how to really get into that scene. So I thought that was really cool, man. That's a compliment.
Let me tell you something. That's right, because you wrote an incredible story here. And then I'll read something 25, 30 times before I even get into, talking about my character. So I'm reading, and the part where I'm stealing money from the guy that I can't stand, and then I look at the picture of my father, and because I'm going down there with serious hatred in my soul for this guy, I can't stand him. I want to steal his money. So I go there, and then I see my father. And then there's a part of me, I'm split in half. That puzzled me because I couldn't do that and look at my father. I didn't know really. I had to call Chazz and say, Chazz, I can't be incredibly angry with this man and then flick the switch and go to my father and break down. It would look fake. He says, well, here's what you want to do. So he called me when I was driving home from Atlantic City with my wife. I pulled out on the side of the road. He was doing a film. He said, Fred, I have 10 minutes. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm doing a film in L.A., so talk to me. This guy called me right back after I told him I had a little problem with this because he knew that we were doing it soon. And I talked to him on the side of the road. Talk about a guy. It's just amazing. They talk about these people who are very condescending or stars, don't look at them. Sometimes I was on a set, can't look in their eyes. This guy, he would do anything for you. And the shirt off his back. And he loves people. And what he does, out of the goodness of his heart also, he teaches at the Actors Studio every Tuesday. So,
Gives back.
but yeah, It was
Fred, one more
Oscar.
thing about Chazz, and then we'll move on. You mentioned a story about the Sinatra story with Chazz. Why don't we talk about that real fast, and then we'll move on.
You got it. All right. So I'm at his house. I'm at his home. So he has a big office in his home. So all the guys retreat to the office. We're talking, looking at all his photos. A couple of Emmys he won. And so I'm looking at this picture, and this picture of Frank Sinatra, and I'm seeing it. I says, Chazz, what's it? He says, that's Sinatra's birthday. It was his birthday. I says, yeah, did you get to know him well? He says, to get to know him well. He invites me to his place in Palm Springs, Frank Sinatra's house, and he's drinking a martini. And with his martini, he always has 2 olives on a toothpick. This is the first time I was there, he said. So he brings me out to his balcony. He says, come on out, we'll talk to you a minute. And we're talking, and he grabs a toothpick with the 2 olives, and he says, take an olive. And Chazz doesn't drink. He says, no, I don't want it, I'm not drinking. He says, no, take the olive, he says. He said, okay. He took the olive, then he took the olive, he says, okay. And then they start talking again. He goes in, Peter Lawford's there, and says, you know what he just did with you? He said, no. He says, he gave me an olive. He said, no. He shared his friendship with you. You're in the circle now. So when Frank does that with you, that means he really likes you and he'll keep you as a good friend. I have a picture here. See this? See that picture here with him and Frank, Dean Martin?
Yeah, it's nice.
Well, that right there, I want to tell you, he had that at a function, a charity that Chazz has for underprivileged children. He and his wife put it together, and every year he has it in New York City somewhere. And you bid on different pictures and posters and things like that. That's an authentic picture that I bid on and won. And but yeah, Frank Sinatra really took a liking to him, and
That's awesome.
Their friendship started.
That's a great story, Fred. That's a great story. And again, that was an unorganized crime. I got to watch it. I still haven't watched it. I'm ashamed to admit it. Directed by Nick Vallelonga, right?
Nick Vallelonga, 2-time Academy Award winner for what?
Green Book, baby.
Green Book, that's right. His father, if you watch the Green Book, his father was a chauffeur. He drove Mahershala Ali, who played this incredible, he was a pianist, but it was the days of, segregation down south. And he was hired to drive this, African-American man all over to play. And Nick, throughout his years with his father, wrote these notes and taped them. So Nick Vallelonga wrote that, and he won 2 Academy Awards for the Green Book. So before that, in 2017, he directed Chazz, myself, and the other guys in Unorganized Crime. So that's another good friendship. It's another great guy. Nick Vallelonga.
Yeah.
Bobby Moresco, also, who won Academy Award for Crash, is a dear friend.
It's tremendous, Fred. Tremendous. You kept good company, bro. I don't know what you're doing with me, but you kept good company otherwise.
You're a great guy.
Now, Fred, we talked about everybody else. Let's talk about you now. For those that are watching this, I mean this. I'm not just, he's my friend, yes, but I'm saying this with all sincerity. Great actor. I think that any producers that's out there looking for a talented person, please make sure you reach out to Freddie. We're going to have links in the description box where you can find Fred and all his wonderful work, and also how to reach out to him, social media and whatever. And what's something that now you really want to pursue? I know, I mean, we've spoken, right? You want to start pursuing some of your own projects. You want to put some stuff in development. But where's your heart leading you right now?
Well, to tell you the truth, Vince, I would really like to do a couple projects with you. I'm writing some things myself. I'm always keeping active, but I do want to, more than not, make a feature film. And I'd like to have some of my friends, if they will, who I mentioned before, in it, or help me produce it. But I'd also like to do it with you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to include you, because I think you're a fantastic writer. So that's something that I really want to pursue. I want to do this, whether it be with you. I want to do this on my own. I'm actually creating a couple different characters. I'm studying guitar right now also. That's another thing. When people have a lull in what they love to do, and as far as acting or singing, I'm also a singer too. My inspirations were Engelbert Humperdinck and, Frank Sinatra, Tom Jones, just like Robert Blake and Chazz Palminteri was my inspiration for acting. So, what I really want to do is I really want to do my own feature and play myself or something near myself. I don't want to give it all away. And what's happened in my family. my family business. My father had an auto body shop, so I'll just leave it at that. So that's something that I would love to put out to the universe and someday do. And we'll talk about that someday.
All right, great. Well, Fred, listen, brother, I'm with you 100%. I love everything you're about. You're the epitome of what a great, good, and true actor with integrity, as Bruce Kirby would say. And you show it on and off the camera, brother. So I appreciate you coming on, telling your story. I'm sure we're going to do this again when we're done our next adventure together, hopefully. But any parting words for the viewers out there?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you on winning 12 awards, including Best Director and Best Writer. And, of course, I won Best Performer.
Yes, you did.
But
Best
that's because of
actor.
you. But guess what? That's because of you. It's the first one that I ever won a Best Performer. But parting words, do what you love to do. Don't ever think because you failed at something or don't think you can do something that you can't pick it up and do it again. The greatest part of success is failing. And, I think Denzel Washington even said it in a speech he did at the University of Pennsylvania where his daughters went to. Fail forward. Fail forward. Not fall forward. Fail forward. When you fail at something, don't go down that rabbit hole and say, can't do it, I'm done, and you turn away. No. Hit it harder and say, you know what? Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, keep going. Fail forward. Keep going. And I trust God, trust yourself, okay? Because He's within you. And fail forward. Keep going. Do what you love. And when you're not doing that, don't forget, balance yourself out. Be with your family. Laugh, love, learn. You can learn from people on the street. You can learn from your family, okay? You can learn from anything. Right now, there's a lull in show business for me right now. My manager's getting me out there, my agent. But you know what? I'm going to take a vacation with my wife in a couple of weeks and not worry about the business. It'll come, okay? If you build it inside, it will come. So, just learn to love what you do, but always keep it inside. It'll come to you.
Very well said, my friend. Very well said indeed. So, again, our guest tonight has been the very amazing actor, Freddie Ganno from South Philly, my dear friend, a talented man and a good man. And I encourage you all to please make sure you're following him on the social media, stay up to date with everything he's doing. And Fred, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a long time coming. I saved the best for last over here. But I'm glad we waited because now I have a bigger following.
And great interview with Frank Stallone. And
Thank you.
I watch Vinny's Hollywood podcast. He has some great people on there. You really do, Vin. And
Thank you.
you're a great interviewer. And thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Fred. You're one of the best, brother. So, again, folks, please make sure you're subscribing to me. Make sure you follow me, follow Freddie, follow everybody. Until next time, you've been watching Freddie Ganno and Inside Hollywood with Vinny. See you again next time.
Thanks, Vin.